went live a little early today, but that's fine because we are at our penultimate episode of Talkin' Lost. 21 episodes into this thing. And it's kind of fitting that, after the pilot, the main run of the show started with Kate. And so now we're ending the season with Kate before we get to Exodus next week, which is, like I said, this big, massive 3-part extravaganza covering all the characters that we've come to know up until this point, them being on the plane, whatnot. But so, Luke, obviously it's safe to say that Kate has not been one of our favorite characters on the island so far. And before we get into this episode, I would like to clarify and say that while this episode doesn't give us everything that we need, it gives us some much-needed context on her character that I felt like was missing in the first 2 episodes that we saw of her flashbacks. Would you agree?
I would agree. It like I say with most Lost flashback characters, we see the flashback, now we get why they are the way that they are on the island, and didn't give us all the answers, but it gave us enough of the answers to make up for her lesser flashbacks.
The story of Lost itself almost is like what you just described. All of that and more on today's episode of Talkin' Lost, Born to Run. Stay tuned. All right, Luke, we made it 21 episodes deep. Oh man, it's kind of insane just how many episodes that each season considers, and we're only finished with season 1. We've still got 2 more years into this run. But I've gone on such a journey with you, I feel like, with this show, to the point where the island is literally invading your dreams and potentially giving you...
I woke up on Friday, from a dream. I guess the few hints that you've given me to what might happen in future seasons, my brain is putting together theories and foreshadowings of dual timelines. And I think Claire was in one, Saeed was in the other, but I was also there, so it's very strange.
See, this is what makes me so happy, though, because you being and having grown up in the media age that you have, like I said, you were a little on the younger side when this show was airing the first time, so you coming of age in the 2010s as opposed to the 2000s when this was really on the air and such, gives you such a more unique and I feel like better perspective in terms of being able to appreciate this show in a way that perhaps people who were growing up or already in their adolescence and coming into adulthood when the show was on the air may not have, So I like I said, there's a reason why I wanted to do this recap with you, and it's kind of fitting because The first episode that we did after the pilot was Tabula Rasa all the way back in September, which was Kate's first solo episode. And the majority of her backstory there was, okay, she's on the run, and she's in Australia. And, her character, like I said, was always supposed to be a bit of a mystery. She was originally conceived as the lead character in the original pilot draft when Jack was supposed to die in the pilot, when he was originally played by Michael Keaton. Before that all changed. So, obviously, like I said, the fact that Kate... I feel like the thing about this episode that's so clarifying is the fact that it helps explain how kind of the original vision is how Kate was supposed to be the original main character, where you have all this mystery surrounding her. Her second episode, which we talked about, was probably the weakest episode for both of us this season, where her backstory is just she's in the middle of a bank robbery, where it's revealed that she's involved with the robbery itself. She's their inside woman. And then on the island, she's just trying to get the Marshall suitcase because of an airplane, a toy airplane. And you're just like, what the hell is going on?
Is that the one where Sawyer kept trying to open the box in humorous fashion? Was that a different one?
I believe so. Yes, it was. Because whatever.
That was the highlight of that episode.
Yeah, that was the best part about that episode. And here, while we still don't have all the answers, we still don't know the exact thing that she did to make her a fugitive. This is kind of a come full circle for her, before, like I said, before we wrap up with everything, we kind of wrap up with Kate, who, again, in this original bizarro, alternate timeline where she is no longer the main character, and the writers were left in this situation of, we're like, okay, what do we do with Kate? Oh, we're going to make her the mystery character. We're going to make her the character where, every time you see her, you're not going to know where her allegiances lie. Is she with Jack? Is she with Sawyer? Is she with Locke? Is she on an island of her own, if you will, And this episode, while still not giving us everything, it does what Lost does best in the sense of giving us just enough to be able to form our own conclusions. And what I like particularly about the backstory in this episode, besides the fact that it's the first time where we're actually getting to see her be like, you know, emotional and like kind of get in touch with some of her backstory as well. She's trying to infiltrate this hospital so she can see her mom who's dying of cancer, and she does so by contacting a very old friend of hers who works in the ER, you know, and it's revealed that they buried this time capsule together, and that's also, you know, what we discovered that's the origin of the toy plane that was in the Marshall's briefcase, you know, and unfortunately,
I was very happy to see that. Like, oh, I recognize that thing.
Yep.
Like, so that's what that means. Find
Yes.
out like 20 episodes later.
Exactly. That again, it is Lost's age-old problem. It is the fact of, again, it is a binge show made in the network TV era. So you're gonna eventually get answers, but you're gonna have to sit through a lot of episodes in order to get there. And you better be taking notes if you don't have the best memory, because yikes, there is a lot of stuff that this.
Well, that's
show
what the show is
constantly
for.
dealing with.
Otherwise, I would have to either binge it or have a Google Doc of some sort.
Exactly. See, this is the problem. They didn't have recap shows like this in this depth to this extent back in the 2000s when the show was airing. But unfortunately, like I said, the backstory here is Kate hooks up with this, not hooks up with, but meets up with this doctor who's a very old friend of hers. Again, they buried this time capsule together in order to try and get inside so she can see her mom for the last time. Unfortunately, when she meets her mom starts screaming in terror. This alerts the guards, who again are on the lookout for Kate, because she's whatever crime it is that she's done that we may or may not be finding out about.
Public enemy number one, apparently, because everyone knows her.
Yeah, exactly. So, unfortunately, she goes on the run. Thomas tries to stop her, and unfortunately, he dies in a very, very tragic fashion. And back on the island, meanwhile, the island plot, as far as what's going on there, like I said, we've only got one episode left before the Exodus, the finale. So by network TV standards, that means that the plot device that has been going on in the main plot line has to be almost finished. In this case, the raft that Michael and Jin, I would say Michael, Jin, and Sawyer, but we all know Sawyer is really not helping out that much, that have been working tirelessly on is near completion. So obviously, again, this is causing a couple of things. We have this new character, Arnst, who comes in out of nowhere.
Are we ever going to see him again?
I'm going to give you a little precursor, right? Outside of the main set of cast members, Lost had this very, very tricky thing of constantly trying to introduce the rest of the survivors outside of the main 14 constantly into the throes of the main characters. I'm just going to say this, that if their name doesn't pop up in the main cast credits, yeah, the island is not too kind to them. That's all I'm going to say. Like I said, David Lindelof is a big fan of mythologies and fandoms of all sorts, and the idea of red shirts in Star Trek is absolutely no stranger to him. So that's all that I am going to say. So you have this
again,
character.
a very, very similar to The 100, which is, I guess, my Lost precursor, where they land 100 of them, but there's only, like, I don't know, 10 or so main characters.
They're
so
like,
the rest they're just floating about.
They're like, yeah, let's face it, we don't have the budget to be able to give back or the willpower
or
to
the
be able to
runtime
give or the runtime to be able to give backstory to 100 characters. Like I said, just the fact that this show needed 25 episodes, if you count all the split up parts, in order to cover 14 main characters, So naturally, Kate is feeling very precarious and is like, okay, I want to get off this island, because if they're actually leaving, then the likelihood of us actually being discovered, which means the likelihood of me going back to jail, is very high. And as this backstory confirmed, Kate is a character who has consistently been on the run, even since she was a little girl, both literally and metaphorically. She is constantly on the run from something, from her past. And, she gets into a little tete-a-tete with Sawyer, where Sawyer was like, yeah, you're not taking my spot. I'm getting that spot. Why do you want it so badly? I love how Sawyer, is kind of just as bad as Kate, where, again, he never gives a reason for anything, but he always, manages to, every time somebody is, willing to point a finger at him as being the bad guy, he always manages to justify it. He's like, yeah, I may be bad, but they're worse. And I think this is his most egregious example yet, when he discovers that Kate may potentially be trying to sabotage his spot on the raft. Obviously, the catalyst for this being Michael takes a sip of a water bottle, randomly falls sick out of nowhere, not feeling well. So naturally, this causes a massive tizzy. Eventually, it's discovered through everyone's arguing and bickering that one of the water bottles that they've been collectively drinking from was poison, and that
It reminded me a lot of the burning the raft episode,
Exactly,
where, something
exactly.
happens, or okay, I feel like it's him.
Yeah,
or
there's
her.
a
It's
reason
probably
why
not.
there's a reason why Walt comes up to Locke and midway through it. He's like, I promise this wasn't me. He's like, and Locke's like, you think that just because you burned I know that you burned the raft. Do you think that what's it called? Do you think that I think that you poisoned your dad potentially? And he's like, yeah, I guess. Before giving
And then something interesting
very
happens.
cryptic. Don't open it. Don't open it, which we'll get to. Like I said, it's only a one-off scene, but it's a very, very crucial scene. Like I said, this is the episode where, again, all the major plot lines overhanging for the first season are starting to get wrapped up. And like I said, the major
Jack
two
finds out
overhanging.
about the hatch as
Jack
well.
finding out about the hatch finally. Real quick, what do you think of the whole poison subplot and its similarities to the burning of the raft?
Yeah, because they're on this island, they're isolated. There's only so many suspects in this kind of thing. So, and there's conflicts will arise, and this uncertainty of who poisoned who can I trust, that creates more conflict and tension, which is not good for the case that they're going to try and survive on this raft. Which I can't wait to see how that goes or doesn't go. We'll watch them this upcoming week, all three of them. But yeah, and the poison, because it had me guessing like, okay,
Right.
I feel like it could be Kate, but that's way too obvious. And when it is revealed that it's Jin, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
It's Son, yeah.
Or Son.
Son.
I'll get
Jin.
there
Yeah,
one
yeah,
day.
yeah.
By
One day.
season
Oh man,
6,
you've been doing
I'll have
so
it.
well too. You've been doing
No.
so well too up until this point. Oh man,
man.
a classic Freudian slip. We haven't seen one of those on here in a minute. No, but you're right.
By season
because-
6, I'll have it.
By season 6, definitely you'll have it. By the time we get to it in 2026. Oh man. But yeah, and like I said, it's obviously Michael thinks it's Sawyer. Jack's talking with Locke and Hurley. Hurley accidentally lets slip about Kate being a fugitive for the marshal, a fact that Locke did not know. That's the other interesting thing too, also, besides the hatch, but besides Saeed and Locke finally showing Jack the hatches again, you're starting to see more of the rifts that have been developing ever since Boone's death between Jack and Locke, which we're gonna see come to a head in the finale and the premiere of season 2. Like I said, the divide, the growing between the man of science and man of faith, it is coming, to say the least. And with Locke poking fun of it, it's like, okay, you didn't feel the need to tell us about the marshal's case with all the guns in it. You didn't feel the need to tell us about Kate being a potential fugitive. Don't you think that's something that the rest of the survivors needed to know? And of course, Jack tries to throw it back in Locke's face, where it's like, yeah, Locke, you still lied about the hatch, and you want to know so much about Kate. Why don't you ask her? Indicated that he's tried to get, her backstory out of her, and he has been unsuccessful up to this point, to the point where he's he's just basically given up. And so obviously you had the thing with her and Sawyer in the beginning where she was like, yeah, Sawyer, if I want your spot, I'm going to take it. And where Michael, of course, after he finds out that he's been poisoned, he immediately assumes that it's Sawyer. And Sawyer's like, why the hell would I do that? Why would I jeopardize my spot on the raft like that? That makes no sense. And he's kind of fed up to this point. So knowing, obviously, that Kate has something to do with it, he grabs her and exposes her as being the fugitive that the marshal.
And I thought that's a reasonable Sawyer crash out. Like he's been accused the whole episode of poisoning. He's just trying to get out of here. Like he doesn't want to stay here for nothing. He even says later on,
nothing to stay for.
When it's the classic end of the episode, everyone's sitting around the campfire. I'm like, as soon as that happened, okay, end of the episode is inbound. So yeah, he does not want to stay, but I'm guessing he will somehow end up staying, or everyone will end up staying.
You'll see. Like I said, it's going to be interesting, is all that I'm going to say. Like I said, there's still one big plot element that has not been introduced yet that will come back in the finale. One that we haven't, the one that we may have forgotten about, one that may have been in the back burner for the island so far, but a cryptic piece of island lore that is going to come back and haunt the survivors, at least for the next couple of seasons.
Well, I did read the Netflix episode description for what the next one entails,
okay,
and
so you already know.
and who comes
And
to the survivors.
Well, yes, exactly. So, like I said, all of these things conspiring together, obviously. What's it called? Like you said, reasonable Sawyer crash out, and once Michael kind of sees everything that's going on, Michael's like, yeah, Kate, you're out. Sawyer's back in on as far as the raft goes. So, like I said, they're still set and ready to go, despite Arndt's prediction at the beginning that he's like, oh, the monsoons are coming. You would have had to have left yesterday in order to catch the north wind. Whether he's actually telling the truth or whether he's a crackpot, he doesn't exactly look like the most stable of characters. But then again, he's been stranded on an island for, what is it, like 3-4 weeks, a month now that they've been there. And, what's it called? And he isn't exactly a part of the main survivors, so God only knows what he's been up to. And yeah, so sorry, wow, major brain fart there. So they're getting ready to leave. Walt comes clean to Michael about burning the raft the first time. He's like, yeah, I didn't want to leave, and Michael's like, listen, if you want to stay, we can stay. And he's like, no, I'm good to leave now. After everything that I've been through on the island, polar bears, smoke monsters, my weird prophet visions coming true. It's like, yeah, I think it's better that we get out of here. Probably shouldn't stay here.
It's very Danny in The Shining to
Yes.
me, kind of like kid has all the answers, this energy surrounding him with this mysterious place. So, but like you said, they kind of abandoned that.
Yeah,
one
they
'cause
unfortunately were
he
forced
grew
to
up
abandon it
so
because he
quickly.
grew up very, very quickly. Yeah, so like I said, really only two other major things that I want to cover for this episode. The revelation of Sun being the one that poisoned it in an attempt to keep Jin there, but the fact that it was all Kate's idea. Jack is quickly able to figure out that Sun's behind it, but Sun doesn't tell Jack that it was Kate's idea, not hers. What do we think of that as far as like, because it's weird because thematically I don't know where it stands because I can't tell if this episode is trying to, again, make it where Kate is misunderstood or make it that she is kind of just as guilty as everyone assumes of her, or a little bit of both. So I guess kind of that's where I don't know where to feel because Sawyer was right. Kate was behind everything. He just was wrong about how she did it, Like, he knew that Kate had something to do with the poisoning, You just immediately assumed that once it was Sun, you're like, oh, because she's worried about Jin, she wants to stay him here, she doesn't want him to die, but then it's revealed that Kate was the one who came up with the idea, so that's kind of where I'm still like, I still don't know how to feel about this episode, despite, yes, it easily being the best of the Kate episodes so far.
Yeah, because Sun doesn't really have like an evil bone in her body. It
Right.
feels like, but then Kate, she most definitely does. So if Sun wants to keep Jin from going, Kate might have some idea, and obviously she did. There's still that sort of rift between Sun and Jin that's kind of yet to be resolved. We'll see what happens in the finale in regards to. If he's planning on going to boat, how is he going to communicate with anyone? So
Right. Well, he seems to have been
part of it. He seems to be doing pretty good.
Yeah, he seems to have been doing a pretty good job up until this point. Like they were saying, him and Michael argued like an old married couple. But, yeah,
it's very enjoyable to see.
And the other thing too, also, if Kate was the one who gave Sun the idea for Jin and everything, it's pretty weird that like Jin would try to mix the water bottles. Where again, Michael or not Sawyer obviously, but Michael could take one just as easily and be poisoned by it. So. Poor planning on her part there. And then the other thing, obviously, like I said, Saeed and Locke, like I said, it's only one scene, but Saeed and Locke making the decision to show Jack the hatch, and Jack being invested in wanting to open it. But obviously for more practical reasons than Locke. Locke is interested in it because of like the lore and how it connects to the island and everything and believes that they were meant to open it, versus Jack is like, yeah, just from a survival standpoint, this could act as shelter or it's got to have supplies, So this is kind of like a win-win for either of us. And Saeed is kind of the only one where he's like, I was bringing you here to try and talk him out of opening it, but instead, well, like I said, once again, more so indicating the man of science, man of faith conflict where, again, it shows that Jack and Locke may just be opposite sides of the same coin. But then also, like I said, you have Walt's major shining moment where Walt has like another like cryptic vision sort of where he tells Locke, don't open it. And Locke knows exactly what he's talking about, even though he questions it. But Locke knows exactly
There's a really
what he's
great
talking
facial
about
expression change on Locke
yes.
when he
great
says
facial
it,
acting by Terry O'Quinn.
Okay, Terry O'Quinn. I'm gonna try and remember that because I don't know any of the names except Evangeline Lilly at this point.
Right.
So,
well, and hopefully, I would hope
and
Daniel
Day Kim.
Daniel Day Kim. But I was hoping Dominic Monaghan, Mary from Lord of the Rings.
He wasn't in this episode a lot, so
no, it's true. He was just all you saw was him playing guitar for Turnip Head and being like,
and he was insisting that his band's records are going platinum with him being
just based off the experiences from the island. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, like I said, good episode, good penultimate action. Like I said, next week, that's the finale, and that's going to be our main podcast episode. Like I said, 3 long episodes. Like I said, 3 long episodes, 3 parts. It's going to be our main hour-long episode next Sunday, and then we're taking a 2-week break. We're covering the Super Bowl, and we're covering Captain America, Brave New World, and a few TV shows in the interim before we resume with Season 2 at the end of February. And like I said, once we start with Season 2, we are not stopping until we get all the way to the end of the year. Seasons 2 and 3, we are covering those in 2025. So, Luke, man, it has already been a journey for all the way through Season 1, but again, we are still only just at the beginning, to quote Zendaya from the end of Dune Part 1. So, what's it called? What are your thoughts on the first season so far before we get into the
I'm
finale next
really
year?
enjoying my time on the island, and I guess the island is enjoying its time with me.
Yes.
Evidently so. It is like this massive show of pop culture that I haven't seen, so I'm just taking it in for the first time. Really enjoying the characters, and excited to see where it goes. So pretty much as good a first season as you could
Yeah.
hope for this kind of thing, and still need to get to the finale. So
It's so funny because I was thinking at my job, as I usually do in my various amounts of downtime that I have there, about some of the best first seasons. You know, so much of the time you have shows that are struggling to kind of like figure out their identity, and it usually takes like a couple seasons for them to like really hit their stride. And it's usually not until about season 3 or 4 if the show has enough time to be able to get there before it like really hits its stride. In the case of It's Always Sunny didn't really become like the It's Always Sunny that we know until like season 6 or 7. But it's very rare that you have a show that like nails it coming right out of the gate, and this is one of the few shows that did it, where this is easily, again, after having revisited this season, some of my fondest memories of watching the show I'm realizing now are from the first season, and it's going to be pretty tough to beat as far as fantastic debut season. So that's it. That was our recap of Lost for the day. Like I said, make sure you tune in a week for the big grand finale. And for all those who are currently on the channel, stay tuned because I'm going live in about 10 minutes with my top 10 TV shows of 2024 with Eric Thorpe and Agnolo Movie Blog. So stay tuned for that. Luke, thank you once again for joining me for another Lost recap. We'll see you next week for the big finale. Where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
they should follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube, because the top 10 video is in development. I have to record it and then edit it, which I will do. I'll record it tomorrow and then edit it throughout the week.
All right, looking forward to that.
I didn't watch a lot of the good movies, but they all came out in December and November.
Yep.
So it's just that sort of thing. But I'm just going to talk about the movies that I want to talk about, Transformers 1 included.
Let's go. Let's go. I'm glad to see I'm
There
not
you
the
go.
only one to put that in my top 10. And of course, you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. You guys know the rest. I'll see you guys shortly for top 10 TV shows, and then we'll see you guys next week for the big grand finale. In the meantime, get lost.